vaults below Bryant Park are organized by size, by the height of the book, right? So that they can use more efficient space. He loves this. More efficient use of space. So you have a shelf that has books this high, and you have the next one that's like that high. So the result is that you have books that, you could have a cookbook next to a novel or whatever. And they are all identified by a barcode. So that's how we find the books. All right? So we're going to finish up downstairs on the second. And the Lions' names were Patience and Fortitude. Okay, my job is done. So they are to be added. And there are two statues that aren't there either. There's a statue on either side of the door. It's called Truth and Beauty. So they were added. Otherwise, that's it. So any questions about the library, or go back there because the room is really beautiful. It's as ornate as the Rosemaid Reading Room is, but small, very intimate, really lovely. And you can use that room as well. That's another room that's available to people. Now, they have what they call open shelves. It's not like you go into the shelves, but you can get materials to use in that room. So let's go through, and when you see me waving my fan, let's come back out here and we'll meet by the money pit. Now, originally, the stacks were underneath the Rosemaid Reading Room when the library opened. And when the library opened, they had 1 million books, and there they were. But it turned out that that was not a good climate for these books. Remember, they're research books. They're not novels to be replaced. These are books they're going to have for, hopefully, a couple of hundred years even. So they decided that they would need a new climate-controlled vault, which they built below Bryant Park. So if you go out there and you're sitting in the park, you're sitting on the steps of the library. Be careful. Now, the Bill Glass catalog room, that was a room that used to be lined with all of those little catalogs, those little drawers, you pull them out, like little index. Yes, I love those. I love them. Yeah. We still have some in operation in this library, but now it's all online. So the way it works is an individual looking for Robert Caro, for example, would go in here and look online at one of the computer terminals, or from your home. You can also search from your home. Fill out a little slip, a call slip with the materials that you want, give it to the librarian at the desk, and then you would go into the Rosemaid Reading Room. And in the Rosemaid Reading Room, there is a kind of like a billboard with numbers on it. And as your call number comes up, you would know that the book has been taken out of Bryant Park's vaults and moved to the library. Now, the way it gets here is the librarian gets to the page, takes the book from the stacks, puts it in a little cart, little red cart. It's like a little train. They have a bunch of these little carts. They run along a track under Bryant Park, up the side of the library, and into the Rosemaid Reading Room. And then the number is displayed on the board, and you go up and get it. Now, it takes about an hour, so give yourself a little time. The train ride takes about 10 minutes in total, but that's how you get your materials. And in the old days, when they had the stacks below the Rosemaid Reading Room, they would take that call slip and put it in a pneumatic tube, and the pneumatic tube would send it downstairs. They would get the books, put them on a dumbwaiter. Technology works. It worked then, pretty good. So we're going to go in there. The Rosemaid Reading Room, just to give you an idea, is 297 feet long. And remember that that's the room where the rosette had fallen from the ceiling. So envision building a scaffolding in that room. It's pretty remarkable. And there's no columns there. There are no steel columns. It's all marble.
So this is an arch ceiling, I take it?
It's flat.
But it's masonry.
Say again?
It's masonry?
It's molded plaster.
No, that's the ceiling, yeah.
Not the structure.
Oh, beams. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But no columns. There are no.
Right.
Okay. So there's a place from which you can take pictures. Feel free to do that. And as you look, barrel vaulted ceilings, what they call it, the Corora Tunnel. Now, this is lined also in French walnut, like that roof downstairs, the periodical roof. And that is marble from the south of France. And this room is lined with a series of paintings called The History of the Printed Word. So the history of the printed word was done during the 1930s as part of the WPA, the Works Progress Administration, and it depicts the very beginning of the printed word with Prometheus handing off light to the people here on Earth, enlightening them, etc. Over here is Moses bringing down the 2 tablets from Mount Sinai. They were in printed form. This is a picture of a monk in a monastery copying a manuscript, say that 3 times, on vellum or parchment, which are both animal skins. So again, there's not a whole lot of circulation of those. This is a picture of Gutenberg. Now, in 1455, Gutenberg published his Bible, his editions of the Bible. He printed about 150 of them, and today there are now 49 or 50 existing in the world. The library, of course, has a Gutenberg Bible. Of course, who wants to? So that's that. This one is a guy by the name of Ottmar Mergenthaler. Mergenthaler was a German-American, and he invented the linotype. The linotype machine was used in the printing of newspapers. So newspapers could be printed quickly, they could change a lot, so that was his invention. There is one panel that's missing, and that would be a panel with a picture of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates in their respective garages around their computers, right? Inventing another way of getting out the printed word. I'm all for it. That's my idea. Now, I talked to you a little bit about the Spencer collection. There's another collection up here called the Aaron's Collection. Aaron's Collection has everything to do with tobacco. Magazines about tobacco, books that mention tobacco, old packs of cigarettes hanging around, a copy of Alice in Wonderland because the caterpillar was smoking from a hookah. But another part of that collection are baseball cards. Now, when I was a kid, I'd go down to the corner store and buy some bubble gum, come home, I had the bubble gum, my brothers took the baseball cards, and that was that, right? But that's not how it originally was. In the early 1900s, baseball cards were distributed through the purchase of tobacco. So that's why they have a big collection of baseball cards. And they have a baseball card for Honus Wagner. Honus Wagner was a player on the Pittsburgh team. And he was very anti this idea of distributing cards through tobacco. So he pulled his card, and as a result, very few of them were published. However, there were some that were published, and as a result, they are very expensive. So there was one that was auctioned at Sotheby's recently for $3.2 million. So check your collections and see if you have one. Now we're going to go through to the Bill Bless catalog group and to the Rosemary reading group. But I'm taking you through the collection, and he decided to sit in Charles Dickens' chair. Now, he was a portly gentleman, and when he sat in the chair, he went right through the bottom, so we had to have it recaned, but nobody sits in it now. So you'll see that as we walk through, and look at the Pforzheimer collection, because you'll see a gentleman's library as it really looked in those days. And then Percy B. Shelley and his circle. So Percy B. Shelley and his circle were gathered around a fire one night in Geneva, in Switzerland, and trying to decide what to do that night. There was no Netflix, nothing was up to drive in. What are they going to do? So they decided to write scary stories. So one of the people in his circle was Mary Shelley. So Mary Shelley went back and wrote probably the first science fiction book ever called Frankenstein. And when that book was published, Mary Shelley was only 20 years old. So because she was a girl, she couldn't publish it under her name, because who would buy something written by a girl? And it was a wild success. And then every edition thereafter, it was under her name. I had a little girl on the tour the other day, and she was so cute. And when I was talking about Mary Shelley, her face was getting she was getting angry that Mary Shelley, couldn't publish under her name. She was just incredible. Anyway, loved her. So we're going to go buy the Burke Collection, look in and fill out an application, or even just send the curator an email. Tell that person what you're interested in viewing, why you want to see it, and when you're going to be available. They will pull the stuff so that when you show up, it's all there for you to look at. So they're very accommodating. So if you're interested in Robert Caro, you can do that, and I'm sure that they have materials on him. But before we talk about that more, let's talk about the Burke Collection. Now, the Burke Collection is where I volunteer 2 days a week. So I have the enviable job of going through archives that the library acquires, either by purchase or as a gift. So I go through the archives and arrange them, sort them by material. So all of the manuscripts, all of the drafts, first editions, correspondence, photographs, ephemera, the person's book, their whole history. So I've been working on one collection now for a year and a half. I'm almost done. But I've done things like Sean O'Casey, John Updike, really famous people. And the one I'm working on now is someone I never heard of, but I can tell you a lot about him now, that's for sure. So it's a very interesting volunteer job. I don't know how I got it, but I did, and I love it. So the Burke Collection was started by two brothers who lived in New York City. They were both physicians, and they had a special affinity for English and American writers. So they collected all kinds of things. They had a very rich collection of Charles Dickens, hence the letter opener. They had a lot of things from Tennyson, all of the old Shakespeare. I was up in the vault the other day in this room, and they were going to be doing some work on the ceiling. So the curator and I were moving books from one area to the other, and I'm like, oh, here's the first portfolio. Okay, fine, I'll just put it right over here. So it's kind of a great place to work. Anyway, so, and then the Americans were things like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Walt Whitman, who has a big collection downstairs. And when the collection was given to the library, it had 3,500 pieces to it. Now it has 35,000 pieces because we continue to acquire. And the collection it's very rich in Virginia Woolf. It has a world famous Virginia Woolf collection, including her correspondence, her diaries, all of the things related to Virginia. So those menus show a lot of information about oysters that were served in restaurants because oysters were harvested from New York Harbor. I'm not sure if you would want to have those oysters today, but they're there anyway. So this collection down the hallway was a collection that was used by three young men about whom a movie was just made. Three Perfect Strangers. I don't know, has anybody seen it? So it's a movie about these three young men who were born from an unwed mother in the 1960s or so. And they were put up for adoption. And they all went to the same adoption agency, but they were all adopted by different mothers. And they grew up, and in their 20s they found each other, not knowing that they had a brother, let alone they were from a set of triplets. So they found each other, and they decided that they would come here to the New York Public Library and search the birth records. And indeed, they did find their mother's their birth record and their mother's name. And they met their mother. It was a very sad movie, wasn't it? I mean, I thought it was going to be like so much fun, but now it's kind of sad, heartbreaking actually. Yeah, but if you see it, it's good to watch. So that's one of the things that this room is used for. It's also got a huge collection of genealogical materials, databases, etc. So if you are interested in tracing your history, tracing your roots, that's the place to do it. So actually, what's the name of that guy who has a TV show about tracing roots? Three names. Finding Your Roots. That's the name of the show, right? And he's coming to speak at the library. I think it's next week. Joe Biden was here this week. We missed him. And Stacey Abrams is coming next week. So they have a lot of different cultural events. They have authors who come, public figures, people are really interested. So, yeah.
You mentioned your competition rankings, all the information was online versus what's here. How much of this is actually online that is currently here?
Okay. The New York Public Library system has over 700,000 pieces digitized online. which is a really small proportion of the items that we have. The entire library system houses 50 million objects, books, records, etc. Digitization is a very expensive and time-consuming process. So they're pretty careful about selecting whatever it is they want to have digitized. But there are quite a number of things. And you can all see the digitized collection just by going to nypl.org. You can see it yourself. You don't need a library card or anything like that. It would be nice to have more of them digitized, and I'm sure they're moving in that direction, but it'll never all be done.
All the new stuff, like in the map, is it all? It's a repository. Is that all digital coming in?
No, it's actual paper.
Because maps are huge.
Yeah,
They take a lot of
they do
space.
take a lot of space. That Mitchell map is a gigantic map. It's a great big map. So they have, they recognize that these things are big, and you can actually download maps that are in the public domain yourself. You can keep them. You can do whatever you want with them. So if they're in the public domain, you can copy them.
Published by the
Okay, so we're going to go to